So what is the Kentucky man who claimed to have killed Tecumseh? What is his name? He winds up becoming vice president. What's the 60 Years War? What's continuity between these different eras? They're English speakers, WASP, militarism, fascism, nationalism, war hawks. And I want to focus on John J. Hardin's Indian campaigns. What were the Indian campaigns that John J. Hardin, the namesake of Hardin County, what were those campaigns that he was a part of? So, the Matthew Empson Welsh Bridge is the bridge that connects Meade County to Indiana, the land of the Indians. Matthew Empson Welsh is the 41st governor of Indiana. He was from the Democratic Party, served from 1961 to 65. His term as governor saw a major increase in statewide taxation, including the first state sales tax. It was a regressive tax, and the passage of several important civil rights bills, making Indiana one of the most friendly states to ethnic and religious minorities at the time. His tax hikes led to a near tax revolt in the state. People began writing Indiana land taxes on their license plate at entry points into the state and stores and other public places. The situation killed any chance he had at seeking higher office and earned him the moniker Sales Tax Matt. The Meade County Bank, located in Muldrow, resembles a U.S. gold bullion depository, though on a much smaller scale. In the 1950s, the population of Meade County doubled. Meade County is named for James M. Meade, who died at the Battle of Frenchtown, aka the Battle of the River Raisin, fighting against Indians during the War of 1812. 9 Kentucky counties were named for Kentuckians who fought and died at the Battle of Frenchtown. The Battle of Frenchtown happened in near present-day Monroe, Michigan. James M. Meade and the rest of the Kentucky Americans on January 18, 1813, attacked the British and Native Americans at Frenchtown in Michigan Territory, which was named because the French had established it, but it was now occupied by Native Americans and the British. The French settled Frenchtown from 1780 to 1795 in long, narrow farms along the River Raisin and Swan Creek. The Americans wrested the territory from the British in 1796 as part of Wayne County, its status until 1805. Then the British and the battles of Frenchtown was then that shit happened. So the Battle of Frenchtown is extraordinarily significant for Meade County, for James M. Meade and his story, for the namesake of this county, because that's where he died, right? And so they started at Georgetown, Kentucky. They go up Newport, Pequot, Ohio, and then Fort Wayne, Indiana. There's about 2,000 Kentuckians marching from Georgetown all the way up near Detroit, Monroe, Michigan. And that's how they actually fucking they were trying to take Detroit over, but nobody guarded the road coming from Detroit, so there was nobody staking it out to see if anybody was going to be coming with their fucking armies anytime soon. So it almost seemed like it was like some sort of suicide mission. They were starving. It was cold. They called it Fort Starvation. It happened in January, so it happened during these months right now, so it's fucking freezing. It's January 18th, actually, so it's 11 days ago. 1813, so 201 years ago. So 10 days and 201 years ago, you had the Battle of Frenchtown, and so there's so you had 2,000 Kentuckians that marched really long ass fucking way. They get all the way to Fort Starvation. Bland Ballard, he leads them at 3 p.m. and they take over the town. And then 5 days later, they come back with an army from Detroit, the big fucking base that they wanted to take back, and that was it. And all was over for them after that. So the Battle of Frenchtown is the biggest battle ever fought on French soil. It's the bloodiest battle of the War of 1812. The bloodiest, the worst, the most deaths in the War of 1812 was at the Battle of Frenchtown. Sometimes it's called the Battles of Frenchtown because there's 5 days of fighting, 2 main days of fighting, I guess 3 or 4 days of occupying. The War of 1812, and they loved it, when they took over Frenchtown, instead of living in these fucking cold camps in the snow and shit, they got to live in the fucking house. The War of 1812 went on for 2 years and 8 months from 1812 to 1815. January 18, 1774 was the first attack with the Kentucky Americans. George Madison and James Winchester attacked the Native Americans, Amerindians, Redskins, led by Roundhead and Walk in the Water. So Roundhead and Walk in the Water were the Indian leaders, which I will get to more in a second. There is a community called Roundhead in 1832. It's the oldest white community in Hardin County, Ohio. So that's Hardin County, right? Probably named after James Hardin. Yeah, it's named for the same James Hardin that Hardin County, Kentucky is named after. And Roundhead is the Indian that had fought actually against James and Meade. So there's sort of a cross-reference there. During its history, it's been referred to as Roundhead, Roundhead's Town, you know, there's different spellings. Ohio is different because at least they honor some of the Native Americans. Roundhead is named for the great Wyandotte Chief Roundhead. The Wyandottes, led by Chief Roundhead, had a prominent village on the banks of the Scioto in the river in the location of the present-day Roundhead. Chief Roundhead was an important ally of Tecumseh, and as Tecumseh's enforcer was helpful in persuading various Indian tribes to unite under Tecumseh and fight against aggression by the white man. Chief Roundhead signed the Treaty of Greenville as leader of the Wyandottes. The Wyandotte people, or Wyandotte, also called Huron, are indigenous peoples of North America. They traditionally spoke Wyandotte, an Iroquois language. By the 15th century, the pre-contact Wyandotte settled in the area of the North Shore of present-day Lake Ontario before migrating to Georgian Bay. It was that later location that they first encountered the French explorer Samuel de Champlain. In 1615, the modern Wyandotte emerged in the late 17th century from the remnants of two earlier groups, the Wyandotte or Huron Confederacy and the Tionnontate, called the Piton, the tobacco people by the French because of the cultivation of the crop. So the Piton. The Wyandottes are actually a conglomeration of two different tribes, the Wyandotte or Huron and the Piton people, the Tionnontate or Piton, the tobacco people. I think that's actually one of the easiest. The tobacco people. So Wyandotte's part tobacco people, and Roundhead was Wyandotte. So they were located in the southern part of the now Canadian province of Ontario around Georgian Bay, drastically reduced in numbers by epidemic diseases. 1634, they're dispersed by the war. In 1649, from the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee, then based in New York. Today, the Wyandotte have a reserve in Quebec, Canada. In addition, they have three major settlements, two of which independently governed federally recognized tribes in the United States. Due to different development of other groups, they speak distinct forms of Wyandotte and Wyandotte languages. So Chief Roundhead was a Native American chief of the Wyandotte tribe. He was also known as Bark Carrier, Roundhead, Stayetha. So you had Stayetha, Roundhead, Bark Carrier, Stiata. I kind of like Stiata. So Roundhead, Bark Carrier, Roundhead, Stiata was a strong member of Tecumseh's Confederacy against the United States during the War of 1812 and died alongside Tecumseh at the Battle of Thames, I don't know how, I've heard people say it different ways. Thames, it's Thames, so it looks like Thames, but I guess it could be Thames. And there's another fucking name that they call it. It could be Tecumseh's Last Stand, at the Battle of Tecumseh's Last Stand. So prior to 1810, Roundhead was briefly a war chief under Tarhee, who is an ally of the Americans. Roundhead resigned the position and joined with Tecumseh against the Americans during the height of Tecumseh's war. In 1810, Roundhead was chiefly responsible for the execution of his brother and fellow Wyandotte chief, Leather Lips. He was condemned to death by other natives for his desire to cooperate with the pale-faced European, white, English, waspy, fascist, totalitarian, bloody, war-hawking, psychopathic terrorist. Not only was Leather Lips opposed to Tecumseh's Confederacy against the United States, but he also sold native land to William Henry Harrison, to old Tippecanoe himself. However, it's widely believed that Leather Lips was executed for exaggerated charges of witchcraft to draw attention away from the true political motives. So he actually got killed for witchcraft. Leather Lips was into witchcraft, so while it was unknown if Roundhead took direct part in the execution of Leather Lips, he did head the council that called for his death, and Roundhead dispatched fellow natives to capture him and carry out the execution. During the War of 1812, Roundhead was second in command only to Tecumseh, along Colonel Henry Procter's British forces. He participated in the Battle of Brownstown on August 5th, 1812, in the Battle of Malgaja on August 9th. After this battle, Tecumseh presented Roundhead with a sash given him by General Isaac Brock, as Tecumseh claimed it should belong to an older and more skilled warrior. Roundhead did not wear the honorable sash, as he did not want to cause jealousy among the other war chiefs. Roundhead's most notable accomplishment during the War of 1812 took place when he fought in the Second Battle of the River Raisin on January 22nd, 1813. Tecumseh, who did not participate in the battle, gave command of the native forces to Roundhead and fellow Wyandotte chief Walk in the Water. So you got two Wyandottes. Walk in the Water's a Wyandotte, and Roundhead's a Wyandotte. So they're fighting against the Wyandottes. That's who both Roundhead and Walk in the Water. Walk in the water. Not walk on the water, but just walk. He can walk in water. So they commanded approximately 800 Native Americans, along with Henry Proctor's 597 British troops against a force of 1,000 Americans. I heard there was 2,000 to begin with, so I don't know how that dwindled down to 1,000. The battle was a tremendous defeat for the Americans, as they were caught off guard in the early hours of the morning. Shortly into the battle, Chief Wyandotte, or Roundhead, was responsible for the capture of the ill-prepared American General James Winchester. So they captured the general right off the bat. Having been captured, he was unable to command his troops, and they suffered heavy losses. And in addition to that, Roundhead presented Winchester to Procter, and Procter forced Winchester to surrender his army after only a few hours of fighting. Following the battle, Chief Roundhead aided in the quick retreat of Procter's troops back into Upper Canada, where Roundhead and Tecumseh met American opposition at the Battle of the Thames. Tecumseh's last stand. Leatherlips, an important leader, signed the Treaty of Greenville, encouraged cooperation with the white European settlers near the end of his life. That policy of accommodating Europeans led to conflict in the movement led by two Shawnee brothers, Tecumseh and Tinkswatawa. The prophet Tinkswatawa reacted strongly against Leatherlips and condemned him to death for signing away native lands and for witchcraft. Dispatched by Roundhead, 6 Wyandottes traveled to what is now Dublin, Ohio, just north of Columbus, and announced the death sentence. Other white settlers, led by Benjamin Sells, pleaded for the old chief and attempted to bribe the death squad. The trial and sentencing were swift. After clothing him in his finest attire, Leatherlips joined by his executioners, saying the death chant and prayed. Then he was killed by tomahawk. According to the book, This is Ohio, Grace Golder. The execution took place at the entrance to the caves that is now known as the Olentangy Indian Caverns, located north of Dublin, Ohio, and south of Delaware, Ohio. According to information from the Olentangy Indian Caverns, the caverns were used by the Wyandotte people up until 1810, the death of Leatherlips' death, and also the first recorded incident of a European traveler entering the caves. As a shelter from the weather and a place to seclude themselves from a nearby tribe, the Delaware people, they use it as a shelter. A monument to Leatherlips and memorial art sculpture Artur stops in Dublin, Ohio today. Both Tecumseh and Roundhead were killed during the Battle of Thames, Battle of Thames, on October 5th, 1813. On Roundhead's death, General Procter wrote in a letter dated October 23rd, 1813, the Indian cause and ours experienced a serious loss in the death of Roundhead. For years, Roundhead, who was a staunch supporter of Tecumseh, feuded with other Wyandotte clans who supported Tarhe's pro-American stance. So both of them were fucking killed. Roundhead was killed with Tecumseh, and so Roundhead was actually a respected warrior. Tecumseh admired and looked up to Roundhead, and Roundhead was the one who had murdered James and Meade and company. So Roundhead would be responsible for it, but these are the Indians that we're fighting against. You know, why are these people our enemies? Why are we marching so many miles away to fucking kill these people? They did nothing, you know, to us. And so once Roundhead and Tecumseh's forces were defeated at the Battle of the Thames, the division between the Wyandotte ended, and they began peaceful negotiations with the Americans. Walk in the Water, also called My Era, so Walk in the Water, My Era. He died in 1817, so he lives past the Battle of Thames. He's a Huron Chief who is part Wyandotte. He was a member of the Wyandotte tribe at the beginning of War of 1812. He offered his services to General William Hull, but they were declined owing to the unwillingness of that officer to employ savages. So fucking Americans don't even want the savages to fight for them. The answers to the questions, I don't know the name of the Kentuckian yet. The 60 Years' War is the name of the war against the Indians, which starts with the French and Indian War, the Revolutionary War, and ends with the War of 1812. Continuity, always think about the continuity because the same ruling classes have the same characteristics all throughout American history. John J. Hardin's Indian campaigns. I think he rode with George Rogers Clark, and he was ordered by George Washington in order to pacify those who had killed him. So he was definitely in the fucking thick of it.